Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit, on the tanker, through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that, thanks a lot. We really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was. We were just about to land on the road system, and I'm fiddling with my seat belt while I've already communicated to the rescue specialist in the back of what our intentions were. I've got my hand on my gun to double check it to make sure that we're good to go. And I still took it with me, and then that left door is going open before we get on the tarmac, and I'm getting ready to head towards the target. There I was.
Oh, and that's how all great aviation tales begin, with your hand on your gun. Holy smokes. Greetings, everyone. Repeat here. You're obviously listening to the So There I Was podcast. We skipped the preamble this week. Styx is going to be my co-host, and we'll introduce our guest here in just a minute. I want to take a brief aside, though, if I may. Our guest from this week, well, now last week, if you're listening to this audio, was none other than Jeff Carr, Cobra assault pilot, who was here for his 45-year follow-up with his doc. We owe a special note of gratitude to you, Jeff, for the largest single donation that we have ever received of $500 at any one time. So we're humbled and grateful to you. It is a thrill to be able to bring these amazing stories every week out to people, and your generosity is... Well, go get yourself checked up. Yeah, go talk to a quack. You lost all sense of financial responsibility, but
you need to go back and see that doctor that took care of his leg.
Right, exactly.
have him do a check on his head.
Yeah, we deeply appreciate it. We are so humbled by it. So thank you, and thank you to everybody who is Patreon or direct donor. We are humbled by your generosity and the ability to keep bringing these shows to you. So, without any further ado, my co-host Styx, where are you at today?
I am in the wonderful state of New Hampshire, and we have just an absolutely outstanding guest with us today. We have Darrell Detty from the Arizona Department of Public Safety. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir, you did.
Okay. And he is a helicopter pilot extraordinaire who's done law enforcement work, who's done... he'd search and rescue like it's nobody's business. And we're gonna have an awesome,
we are.
Set of episodes today, because this is just gonna be epic. And we're gonna be doing some rotor-head talk. So
yes,
strap in and grab onto the collective, because you're gonna need it. So Darrell, why don't you introduce yourself to us and tell us, how did you get your start in aviation? Like, where did this all begin for you?
First of all, thank you guys for what you do. When we get these stories out, we can help other people, and that's the name of the game. We're all growing on each other's information and knowledge. And then there's that time when we have to figure it out on our own in a box canyon somewhere. So it's always good. It's always good to get a leg up if you can get one. So thank you guys for that. And if anybody has any questions, I'm not sure how this one works, but if they have questions, ask.
Yeah, they can put them in the comments in Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and X.
So I'm wholly on board with. I'll answer the questions to the greatest detail I can, and then if there's something that comes up later that somebody has a question for me, then fire it my way. I'll make sure to get it over to you guys.
Very cool.
But
absolutely,
my fun time though was, as I had mentioned earlier, it actually started when I was 5 years old. My dad took us to an air show, and my dad stood me up in a helicopter and a bell on the left side. And I just remember looking at that thing like it was the greatest thing on the planet. You know what I mean? Which I'm pretty stuck on that one, knowing that I could let go of the controls on a plane and it will still kind of do mostly what it needs to do. But it seems like a helicopter just wants to kill you. But
you're not wrong.
Trying to tell you.
You just got to have a good relationship. Stay I was a little
Stay ahead of it.
Yeah, always be ahead of the airframe. But at 5 years old, that's where my desire and dreams started. And over the course of time, I kind of meandered and fumbled through life as an idiot teenager, and then carried some of that, further into my early 20s because being stupid seemed fun. But I went in the Air Force thinking that I could actually go in there and get my flying experience there. Like, I'll just go in and fly.
Well, if they fly planes, it's logical.
Yeah, the smart guys do. Sticks, you can attest to this. They don't want the Darrell Dettys in there, trying to shake a stick when you're not even getting all the way through trigonometry in school. Kids stay in school, don't do drugs. But after I got out of that, though, I started working on my degree for criminal justice. Law enforcement had interested me also. But then after I had finished my degree, I took that and I went into the Warrant Officer Flight Program and got accepted into the flight program for the Army back in 97. And at the time, that was a tough year to land it. So I was fortunate enough to get in. I had some really good recommendations from, at the time, the first female brigadier general. She wrote me up one. I had one from John Kasich. I'm not sure if you guys know who he is.
Oh, but, Ohio governor, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yep. He wrote me up a real nice one, and it basically got me in. But what was funny, when I went into the Army, and I'm standing there, obviously they put me as a platoon leader because I'm an old bastard, right? But on my card, it said 09 whiskey on my 3x5 card on my locker that has to be posted up in the corner of your locker so that they have an idea of what your military occupational specialty is going to be, the MOS. Which is basically, it's the same thing like in the Marines. They have codes just like you do in the Navy and the Coast Guard. And my specialty code was 09 whiskey. And the sergeant came in and looked at it and he said, "Well, what the fuck is that?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, man, day one." So that's kind of how it went. And suffice to say, when I had gone back in the service, because I went in the Air Force and then later went into the Army. So sorry, kind of bouncing around a little bit. When I went back in the Army, it was for that flight program. And then the intention was just continue to fly and stay with that, whatever helicopter I got, to retirement. And it didn't work out that way, but the warrant program was phenomenal. The people that I got to work with were phenomenal. The assignments I got to, Colorado Springs, Bucks Army Air Force. We went to Texas for fielding. We went to... Sorry about that.
It's okay. These things do happen a little bit in these, amateur hour, but it's okay. It's all good. We'll roll with it.
Nog's not a professional broadcaster. I mean, relax. It'll be fine. That's fine. It is what it is.
But ended up doing a lot of fun things, like between Colorado, we fielded in Texas. We went to Irwin one time, and then the only deployment I really had, even though I was in during OIF and Desert Storm, both of them. In the Air Force from 88 to 92, when I was in, I was assigned to an avionics repair squadron. So I was a spark chaser. I actually repaired electronic components, mostly navigation systems, autopilot systems, when I was in the Air Force. And I did not like that at all. So after I got out, that encouraged me more for that degree. So when I went back into the military and got into the Army in 97, which I was in from 97 to 04, it was all aviation, which was a blast. But having said that, we just went to Bosnia. We did S-47, Stabilization Force 7, and that was it. On September 11th, 2001, I was actually on the tarmac getting ready to go for my first flight with my instructor, because I was getting ready to go through the instructor pilot course at Fort Rucker. And man, what was weird was, like, you're looking at that wall of helicopters coming through aerial checkpoint, coming back to Fort Rucker, and it's like, what in the heck is going on?
And you're hearing the flight of the Valkyries in the background?
Dude, it was like, it was awesome, but it was confusing at the same time.
Kind
of like, I was going to say, it's kind of like your first wet dream, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can say that or not.
No, you're good. You're good. You can say that here.
But you're looking at this and you're like, Jesus, man, like that's what it looks like when there are 30 plus 58 Alpha Charlies coming back to a resting point. But
back to Mother Rucker.
That was it. That was at Shell. I believe it was at Shell with the first of the 212th at the Army base, at the heli base there. But for those who are curious, like, did I see combat? Did I deploy in combat? During the Air Force? No, I didn't. I was in a repair squadron. They picked 2 senior airmen to essentially be deployed. And as you can imagine, I know this might sound weird for those who've not been in the service, but when you go in the service, deployments are actually, it's a badge of honor. So most guys will fight to get the deployment.
Right.
So that's the people you're competing against. So for those people who went in the military and they're concerned about raising a gun, I'm not saying you won't. I'm saying that there's a lot of heroes out there that'll stand in front of you, and they'll do that. Right. They'll do that job.
They'll run you over to get that position.
That's it. And that's what happened in the Air Force. Like, everybody's throwing their name in the hat to get this deployment to go over and repair, the same stuff, but repair it in the box, which that's going to be a challenge because you don't have your teammates and you're bouncing ideas. And sometimes you get hard broke problems on electrical stuff. Yeah. But that was the first one.
That was, and you said it kind of in passing there. That's one of the things that the Navy and Marines do differently from the Air Force. I don't know how the Army does it. You could probably shed light on it. Is that you said you were in a maintenance squadron, and it's like, what the hell's a maintenance squadron? We had a squadron, and our maintainers, our operators, and everybody, we're all in the same squadron. Because it would seem to me, if the airplane go to the maintenance squadron, now you have to transfer an asset to another squadron, and that. I don't know. It just seems screwed up to me that the readiness of the unit should fall on the shoulders of the CO. And if he doesn't have control over the people fixing his birds, how can you hold him responsible, hold him accountable? So, but that's just, I relinquished my soapbox. How does the Army do
it? It comes down to, how much do you have in resources? How many, and when you are moving that resource around, what are your intentions with it? For instance, are we going to be repairing bullet holes or a hydraulic line? So when you are in a troop, in a cav troop, and there are 8 helicopters in that cav troop, and let's say that your operational readiness rate is really good, coming in at 80%, so you only have 1 helo out of your 8, which would be phenomenal. You'll have a crew chief assigned to a helicopter, and he will wrench on that. And if there are larger things that need a 2-man job or something like that, they'll come in and they'll help each other out. But this is where I specifically requested, and I was fortunate enough to get it, the 58 Deltas, partly due to their flight time versus wrench time is really, really good. That's a Bell 406 if you look it up. It's a 407. It's a 407 sister ship, but a very, at the time, still to this day, very reliable aircraft.
It's easy to maintain.
That's it. That's it. There, we're not talking about twin time here. We're not talking about a transmission that's the size of a VW. You can get on and play with this thing and get it done. So that in that particular case, it worked well for the Army, that single stuff. Now, when you deployed in the field or when you deployed into theater, that all your mechs that were in your troop went with you, unless it was, let's say it was a onesie twosie, like it's a special mission. You know what I mean? And then you'll send out something similar to like a reaction force or a recovery team that'll go with it and, generally run it with more of a skeleton crew. That way you're not dispatching your assets out, and crippling yourself back at home base.
Okay.
So that's kind of how the Army plays the game as far as the deployments themselves are concerned, how many they'll send. And if that answers your question.
Yeah. So, but they keep them in the same squadron essentially in the Army.
Yes.
As opposed to
now so to think about this, so repeat. We had 52 141 Starlifters in McGuire Air Force Base in Jersey.
Right.
So we're chasing on all those, and then it was.
I love that term. Would you tell people what a spark chaser is?
Oh, so it's really neat to be taught about electricity and electronics and electronic components with respect to aviation. The Air Force sent me, I think it was like a 9-month or 10-month course. It was long, but they took me from not knowing anything except your basic math, and now you're computing, what you need or what a certain circuitry could take, so that when you're in there and you're chasing or you're reading schematics for something that's inoperative, and your lights that registered, and keep this in mind, guys, this glass technology, I was in the Air Force from 88 to 92. Glass
Steam
technology
gauges.
they were all steamed. So I remember one computer distinctly. It was a test programmer logic computer. It was a TPLC for the autopilot system. It weighed 50 pounds.
Oh my God.
One computer weighed 50 pounds. But as a spark chaser, in the event that something was flagged on a flight that went bad, and they either red slashed it or red X'd it, took it completely out because it was something they absolutely needed in the aircraft, then we would come on board. We would get the flag. We would the debrief from the pilots would kick out into the computer system, and then we would read what the issue was specifically with the aircraft. And then once we got onto the aircraft itself, we'd validate that right up on this huge logbook that has, the remarks section, and this is what I saw, this is what it was doing. And then we'd take that information with what we knew about the aircraft. We would run our tests, and then we would try and repair whatever was broken, whether it's out on the engine or it's something that's actually in the avionics bay, which for a 141 is actually underneath the flight crew deck. You step off of it, and there's a ladder that you just basically take off. And then that's where most of your avionics are at. Almost all your avionics are at,
Sure.
Which for those who are curious, it is a museum platform now, like me.
Yeah.
But that's how that works.
And so, was there a hellhole in the cockpit you could go through, or anywhere, right? Or did you have to get in it from underneath only?
No, it was kind of neat. The way that it was designed, being directly underneath the flight deck, when you stepped off, that you could use the handles that people would normally hold to go up the ladder. You could hold those handles going down and basically kind of just slide yourself,
Okay.
down to the next floor. And then you could just, because the ladder's already been removed, you need that for exigency, but then you can just go straight under the avionics. And the reason you would do that, there were certain lights on certain tests that you would look for. And if those lights didn't register, that was a beeline straight to that particular computer. You rarely got your broken wires, you know what I mean? Or either the computer was broken, or it pointed you pretty close in the right direction. So
some component failed, not the wire.
That's it.
A lot easier to troubleshoot than today.
Okay, this is a really geeky question coming at you, and I'm sorry, folks. Take us down a little bit of rabbit hole. Did you have aluminum wiring, Kapton wiring, copper wiring? What? Because we had a big issue with Kapton wiring in Harriers that grounded the damn fleet over and over and over again, and they eventually got
same with
Kapton out. Yeah.
So as you can imagine, the copper did work best. It was a little bit less, and then you also have to think about weight. So when when you have miles of avionics wire in an aircraft, you have to think about what am I wiring it with?
Yeah. So how many miles in the 140? This is going to to people. How many miles of wiring in a?
You're going to make me chat GPT that one, dude.
Yeah, well, give me a guesstimate. I mean, that how much? I could say how many feet, and you'd go, well, no, miles.
Yeah, if I am throwing it out, I'm gonna put it out at 3.5 miles of wiring.
Yeah.
And now I'd like to chat. I wonder if that's even up.
Well, there you go. We'll look that up while you chat.
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
This is my specialty.
Yeah, it's what he does.
Love it.
So, sorry about that, folks. I had to ask the geeky question, but
now, some of the things I do remember, I do have a funny story about that 141 where we had it was called a red streak. Basically, the aircraft is on the tarmac, it's running, and during the crank sequence, something went sideways. So they need us out there, and they need us out there 5 minutes ago because the aircraft is scheduled for a flight. And keep in mind, when you do the math and you look at when I was actually at McGuire Air Force Base in Jersey in that 1989 to 92, a red streak wasn't a training. That wasn't so that a pilot could go out and accomplish his training stuff. We were actually doing things relative to what was going on overseas. So they needed that. Yeah, they needed the aircraft. But
so what I did get is over 100 miles of wiring in a 141.
Oh my God! So I was way off.
Yeah. I didn't know for sure, but I know they say that about the 777, which is my last bird. So, yeah, it's many tens of thousands of feet of wires. But in that sense, right, I mean, you realize that a single harness can have probably 30 or 40 wires in it. They're not huge, like electrical wires like your house, your 12 gauge, 14 gauge wires. They're relatively thin, but they're also running back and forth the length of the airplane over and over again. And there's, several hundred, probably several thousand of them, obviously.
So one of the things you got into with that aircraft, though, was the structural integrity of it over the course of time. Because for those who look up the history of the Starlifter, that thing had been around since the 50s.
No hard landings, though, so it kept them.
So how do they fix a stress fracture in an airplane? You guys, I'm sure you know this one.
Yeah.
So I know that with the look. Yeah, they'll take a drill and they'll literally punch a hole right in the metal, right at the end of that crack.
Yeah, they drill a stop hole. Yeah,
that's it, man. And so when you're thinking about the weights combined and the over the course of time, those missions, and I didn't know there was 100 miles of. That's amazing.
Yeah,
but it went in the museum for a pretty good reason. I think that thing was. Yeah, but it did its job.
And as Dizzy said, of course, when you drill through there, you wind up drilling through a wiring harness, right? And
isn't this? I love this. Dizzy, who says it's always the wire in the middle of the harness. Holy Jesus, is that not the case? Or it's that one where you need your elbow to bend another 90 degrees, and you can't. You can't get.
Oh God, part of Murphy's Law, man.
Yeah. So that story though, that if I could just say it real quick, it was
we keep sidetracking you. Go ahead.
No, this will be quick.
Red streak. Yeah.
It was a red streak. So they want this aircraft. They want it quick. They need it now. So when I'm going up and down, remember I was talking about light sequences and running tests. Yeah. So on this one particular test, I need to be up top, but I need to be down low. But I have just a little bit of time between my transitions when I'm looking at lights and I'm watching switches kick off.
Okay.
And I'm running my test. I go up top, and there's this freaking grown-ass fucking man standing right in the middle of the flight deck. And he's asking me like it's a therapy session, like, how's everything going? Dude, I didn't hesitate. I'd like it'd be a hell of a lot fucking better to get the fuck out of my way. And, check the rank before you open your mouth. So,
06, 07, dude, tell me it was a general.
Thank God. I had a full bird that's standing there and the good thing is I got one that he was a soldier's leader, so he looked at me, he started laughing and he said, I'm clearly in the wrong place right now. It was
that's
like,
awesome.
sir,
It's good to sometimes understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
so
that's excellent that he
was
recognized you had a job to do and he was not helping.
Well, the paperwork, it could come. It's not going to make this plane get fixed any faster, sir. So you can prep the paperwork, and I'm still going to be up here trying to get your aircraft online. So there's that.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Fantastic.
All right. So you get into the Army. You're now flying helicopters with them, and so what is the exit out of the Army look like for you?
At the outset, there wasn't going to be one. I was going to stay in and just retire in the Army. And in hindsight, I had a really great mentor that was willing to guide me further in my Army career, but I just chose to step away from it. But when I was, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So we're back and forth here. So started in the Air Force.
Oh, so
got out, went to the Army. Well, I've listened to another show you were on, so I have part of it. But if you could take us just in a quick timeline, the progression to find yourself now looking at getting out of the Army.
Okay.
So, how did you get there from here?
I always got first when I was in the Army. I was fortunate enough to land that warrant officer flight slot in 97.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to get my 58 Delta flight slot to Fort Carson, Colorado. So I got my first pick was Fort Carson, Colorado. My first helicopter pick was 58 Deltas. I did that for a few years at Fort Carson, and then I was lucky enough to get the 58 Alpha and Charlie instructor pilot course to Fort Rucker, which put me at the first of the 212th in 2001. So that's why I was on the flight line on September 11, 2001, and I was going through that instructor pilot course.
Okay.
So up to this point in my Army career, I had only done Fort Rucker, where for those who have looked into the initial entry rotary wing, they're still doing it at Fort Rucker in Alabama, right there by Enterprise and Dothan, that area, Enterprise. But then I went from there to Colorado Springs. We had those small deployments either to field the aircraft in Texas or for train up in Irwin in California. And then we did the Bosnia rotation. Then I came back from that in 01, kicked over to Fort Rucker in 2001, and I was there in Fort Rucker in Alabama from 2001 to 2004. In my last year at Rucker, I was the standardization pilot for first the 212th. Basically, it was like you're herding cats. You just herd 30 cats, and then throw them a cat tree when they do good things, and then, make sure that they're not doing stupid shit with students, and everything else was easy. An older pilot, great guy named Bryant Fontenot, though, he actually offered to put me in Directorate of Evaluation and Standardization. He wanted me as a DES Army training pilot. And guys, Sticks, I'm not sure where you guys were with this, but always studying, every night studying, and I don't mean like, I think I'll sit down for 15 minutes and look at this. No, I mean like every night. And I couldn't hold that. I didn't want to hold that level because when you guys know this, when you are a representation of standards for any military unit, and this in this case would be all of the Army, you get into that game, you get the diverse personalities that you're going to reach, the ones that are scared to death of you because you're in DES, or the ones who literally just read the book 5 minutes ago and now they want to challenge your knowledge. We know who I'm talking about.
Stump the dummy.
Yes, it's like we're not getting anything done here. But having said that, you still want to hold the edge. Right. And as I was watching some things change, and I'm watching some of these deployments, the constant rotations and the kicks in and everything, the rotation didn't scare me in the least. It's a rotation, and like you guys, maybe you'll interpret from some of the stories that I tell that I'm not a coward. You know what I mean? It's just that
no.
So at the time, like I wanted to get out of the military, and I really wanted that search and rescue platform. So when I was in my last year with the Army, I actually queried, I posited with the Coast Guard opportunity for an inter-service branch transfer, and they kicked me off and told me to go away. And I'm like, man, because now, if we're talking about what I would have done, absolutely loved the Coast Guard mission. To this day, love the Coast Guard mission. The way they treat people, the expectation of standard is, and this, I ain't throwing shade on other services, but I'm coming at this from an aviation standpoint. But when I look at the crews and I've talked with the people that have been in the Coast Guard, holy crap, man, they're dialed in. Like
we had a lot of prior Army aviators that had came to the Coast Guard, and which also created a little, at times, I think sometimes a little bit of controversy, because now all of a sudden they're coming into the Coast Guard, which means, do they get their gold wings? And, so they actually, and there was something like, okay, do you have to go out to the boat and actually make a landing on the boat before they get their gold wings? And that's actually is a thing. Yeah. But I'll be honest with you, it had nothing, and I know it's been said, but I'm going to say it again here. It had nothing to do with you, and it all has to do with the needs of the service. And it's at the time, did they have that need for aviators? And they probably had all of their billets filled, and you just weren't the right guy at the right time. But you were certainly you were the right guy, but not at the right time, is what I should say. And we would have been privileged to have you. I will say that from my perspective. So
to tie into that, and thank you very much for having said that. There are times when it literally is a needs. So years later, I'll go back to that part, but years later, I reached out to the 305th Special Forces Rescue Group, And I was fortunate enough to talk with the commander of that unit. They're down in Davis-Monthan, and they're flying around in the 60. But their mission is unique in that they're able to actually accomplish in-flight aero refuel in addition to the hoisting and the SF mission. Like, it's a freaking phenomenal mission.
Right.
One that I would have loved to finish off the career with it.
Right.
And I'll tie that stuff into like, when did I ask for this and why and
Sure.
stuff like that. But I ran into a PJ on a mission that we were working on, a pararescueman, a parajumper, and he put me in touch with his captain. The captain and I started talking. The captain honestly was just, hey, we would love to have you on board. You're going to be one of our most experienced hoist rescue pilots, which at the time, I think we had 6 years or something of hoisting time. So I was wholly on board with it and wholly into the mission. I mean, it's a badass mission. But when I went to the hearing portion for the Air Force, and, you know, I'm 30% deaf just from working around jets and whatnot, and they told me we are not waiving. And again, Sticks, this ties into what you said earlier. If they really wanted you or really needed you, they'd take you.
They'll make an exception.
So in this particular case, this is the second case where they pretty much said go away. But to go back to that, holding that edge as an instructor, and for those younger guys that they're meat eaters, they want to get out there and do that. Hey, brother, hold that edge. You know, it's going to take a lot of work, and don't be ashamed if you do get surprised by that guy that's out there. He may be the trickster. He may be the one that's like trying to call you out to see what your knowledge base is. At the end of the day, that's not the one that you're gunning for. Somebody's watching you and you don't even know it. Somebody's listening to you and you don't even know it. And that's the guy. Because I've had guys that reached out to me that are CW5s now that were in the Army, and they were my students. And they said, man, I really wanted to thank you. You know, when you said this or when you did this. And it's like, nice. Man, that means a lot. That's invaluable, you know. But the edge is too much, man. That's why I got out.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing there is, you know, you can fail anybody at any given task. If you're an instructor, you can give somebody a scenario that they're going to fail. Yep. And, you know, I've, you know, as most people know, I transitioned over into the medical world. You know, there's advanced cardiac life support. I can give anybody a scenario that they're going to fail. But it's not about that. It's about how can I build them up so that when they're confronted with a challenging situation, that they're ready to respond to that, you know. And that's sort of, you know, it's about building and growing that those people. And I always looked at it as a sandwich. You know, you find the thing that they didn't do right, you give them the advice, but then you point out the positive thing for them so that you keep them motivated so that they keep moving forward. And, you know, that's just the formula for like good correction, good leadership, good development. And, you know, so, you know, spot on. I totally on board with all that.
Yeah, excellent. With respect to the sandwich method is something that pays dividends, especially when you know, as you teach or even as a senior, you start to get some time in the cockpit. How, you know, even facial gestures, a guy's going to look at you when you got a guy that, let's say he's got 10 years of flying time and he comes in and you're the guy that's in the seat and you're going to take him through orientation. You know, the simple gestures, the simple looks, the smaller things, and that guy, what you might have thought, this is insignificant, that's going to make that guy more comfortable, which in turn could make a better psychosocial environment for the cockpit itself.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, everything ties into everything in here. You said something that was really interesting, though, when you're talking about that box of chocolates, that sandwich. And law enforcement, it's almost the exact same way. You know, as you continue to garner experience, it's pretty cool.
That's why I never got the guys who, you know, think that they're going to teach you something by being dickheads. You know, that's. I guess you get something from everybody, but it seems to me it degrades safety and
absolutely.
You know, you're slowing the learning process. Your job isn't to impress your student. Your job is to impart knowledge. So.
And there were examples of that. If I had a student that I knew was really trying or working, and I'm not trying to be a dick, I'm gonna I'm going to cover the bases, but at the same time, this is a controlled environment. But I would take candy with me. I'd find out like what the student liked, and I would take candy with me on a pre-flight, and I would tell them before the pre-flight. Now, keep in mind, this is a training and doctrine unit. I don't have to worry about quick reaction force or a hasty launch, right?
Sure.
I have time. I don't have to worry about me getting distracted from this aircraft. This is my aircraft. So I want to kind of preempt it with that. But I would go out and I would tell the student, I've got 3 pieces of candy on this aircraft. I need you to find them for me. Just do your normal pre-flight. Make sure you talk me through what you're looking at. And I didn't hide them in places. I just set them there. You know that. But when they got to that point, and those smaller things, you know, like they pay dividends. And you're again tying back to psychosocial, the stressors that exist in the cockpit that you're not even putting together the universe that this guy's trying to come to the table with, on top of what type of student he is. Is he a better learner? Did he actually do his job last night and look at the things I told him to look at? Is his map up to date? Is his head in the game? You know, how's your marriage?
Or was he up all night with a crying baby and a screaming cat? Or
that's it.
Yeah. Or just maybe just prior to solo, did his wife decide to have a baby?
Hey man, and was it yours? Like, right?
Yeah. Well, there was funny because what's funny is because that's a question that came up on my first episode here. So, but
there you go.
It's kind of ironic that you came out with that one. All right,
that's funny.
Yeah,
I had a funny. I got a lot of funny stories. This one's really quick, guys, but this ties into the stressors inside the cockpit. So this is day 1 at Initial Entry Rotor Wing, Fort Rucker, Alabama. I'm in my pickle suit with no wings on, right? Because you just have a name because you're going through Initial Entry Rotor Wing. You don't have your pilot's ticket yet. I'm sitting across the table from this big burly friggin' instructor pilot. At the time, I'm a little guy, 150 pounds, 5'8" if I stretched out a little bit or reached for something. But he's asking like, who are you? Why are you here? Et cetera, et cetera. I was being sincere about it. Like I read a couple of books on the warrant program, and one of the books was written by Robert Mason called Chicken Hawk.
Yep. I've read the book. Yep.
So I'll throw a plug. I'll throw a plug for Mason here. I also read CW2, which was a really good book, and later moved on to more of the ground pounder stuff, which I thought was really neat. But man, there's some really good books on 17 and 24 drivers that are out there. Like if you're into that. But so I'm sitting across the table from Hal Beauchesne, and he asks me, what got you here? And I started talking about Chicken Hawk and Robert Mason and how much it inspired me. And he threw his pen. I'm not kidding. He threw his pen on that little student's desk that's barely big enough for both the students, right? So they put 2 guys at this little bitty desk, and I'm sitting next to Dave Bruin, who was Alaska Guard. He throws his pen on the desk, and I'm like, oh, fuck. And then he looks at me and starts directing his ire directly at me. And I'm like, my world is like falling apart right now. It's like, I fucked this up. Like, can I hit rewind? Like, what the fuck did I say? Well, as it happened, Hal Beauchesne was a Vietnam driver, and he said he knew Robert Mason. And he said he basically, for us hillbilly guys, he wouldn't piss up his asshole if his guts were on fire. He hated Robert Mason that much, and then proceeded to tell me that Mason was a story stealer, that he would sit in the hooch and he would take other guys' stories and he would freaking write them down. Hey, Robert Mason, dude, I ain't saying this shit, bro. So don't come after me. Don't swing a stick in my head. I'm just saying, like, this actually happened to me, and somebody that you knew flew with you and did not like you. So aviation is a small world. Put a point in it. If you think you're going to do something stupid or like, nah, that buddy of yours, who's flying over in Seoul right now, he heard about it 3 minutes ago on Instagram. You didn't get away with anything.
That's awesome. All right. So anyway, where are we at now?
I know.
We've had so many diversions.
But you're getting out of the Army. You were going to stay in, but you decide time to get out.
So that was the Coast Guard, right? Yeah. So when Coast Guard said no, and at that point, there's not a lot of options for a rotary driver unless you have the experience in that. For instance, slinging a line, vertical reference, hooking a rope up to the belly and moving stuff around. You do need time in that, and you will have to pass a check ride for that. I didn't have time in any of that. I was just a military driver. So I needed to figure out my way in the civilian world. and I chose EMS. So I started working with OmniFlight, Native Air, which is now Air Methods. They just keep acquiring each other. And I worked with them for 4 years. But 2 years in, I realized, like, and guys, I ain't throwing shade on the trade or the job, but if you're an adrenaline junkie, don't do EMS, don't do HEMS. Don't do helicopter EMS. You're not going to see enough of what you want and need to see to excite you. So that's why I encountered one of the pilots one time on a multi-ship where we all had to go to the same ER. And when I saw him down there, I see this dude standing there in a tan flight suit. And I'm like, no EMS at the time wore tan suits. So I went up and started talking to the guy, and he told me what he did with Arizona DPS. I'm like, that is awesome, dude. Like, I want in on that.
Right.
But this goes back to 2008. And in 2008, they had cycled out completely from the 206s. And now the entire fleet, 5 aircraft, were all Bell 407s. So that's where they were at with the 407s. And each one was staggered by a couple years in shipping. So if you guys recall, like at the time, that aircraft would have been start to finish to get it manufactured and put out to a unit is about $2 to $2.5 million. That's the Bell 429 picture right there.
Wrong one.
So,
yeah. There is. I do have a picture of I think a 407 in here.
So it's essentially a beefed up Jet Ranger, right?
That is it. Yeah, it's a 687 shaft horsepower on that with a single engine Rolls Royce, the 6.7 to 1 tail rotor to main. I think that's generally customary for revolutions per minute between the tail and the main. 4-bladed system, a very small chord though on this aircraft. So when you're thinking about the leading to the trailing edge, the chord doesn't have a lot of meat.
Tell people what the chord is, please.
So from the leading,
you kind of did, but if you tell why that's important also, please.
Oh, this is great. And I'm not going to go into the components of the lift equation, but this actually ties directly into surface area associated with the lifting surface of both a helicopter and a fixed wing. So in an airplane, a lifting surface is the propeller. In a helicopter, the lifting surface can be either the anti-torque rotor, tail rotor, or the main rotor. And on that, you have surface area. So you have from the leading or the frontmost portion of the blade to the trailing edge of the blade, that's measured in a mathematical, and that nose to tail or leading to trailing edge is called the chord. If you drew a straight line straight through that chord from start to finish, and that is called the chord. The span would be how the entire length of one blade on one side stretching all the way across to the blade on the other side, and that entire length would be the span of the blade. So that was for the 407, the span was coming in at 36 feet, I believe, maybe 35 feet, 4 inches. It's right at the 36 foot mark, and it's right around a 40 foot aircraft in length.
Okay.
So those are your measurements. The footprint is really small, so that the thing can get in a lot of tight spots.
Bell 407 has the rotor diameter of 35 feet.
35 feet, 4 inches. Yep. So the tail is relatively small also. So remember what I said about the span and the lifting surface, and that translates into the capabilities of it. So if my chord and my overall lifting surface on my tail rotor, my anti-torque rotor is small, that's going to limit the amount of winds that I can actually take laterally or feeding into that tail rotor.
Sure. Okay.
So you can
the coefficient of the lift of the Bernoullis on the tail rotor divided by the counter rotation of the.
Well,
there's a lot of complicated shit going on there. I'll just say it that way.
Well, you actually got coefficient of lift actually is one of the 4 components of the lift equation. Right. Yeah.
And and then angle of attack and stalling and
also in there.
And my favorite one is, and Sticks and I have talked about it before, is
row.
There's there's
retreating blade stall.
Yeah, the phenomenon known in rotary wing aircraft is a retreating blade stall, where you're going so fast, the wing now stalls because as it's going back, that rotary going back now runs out of airspeed and stalls. Yeah. And you flip over on your back and die.
Yeah.
So for those,
but only once.
You don't have to worry about landing anymore.
Right. So, I mean, that shit's terrifying. Yeah.
Well, no, you have to know where you are in the envelope and stay within that. Know your aircraft parameters and stay within those parameters and leave
Which
yourself.
Which is true, right? In any airplane, I just think it's more difficult in both rotary wing and even the Harrier had some weird. So you were between 30 and 90 knots, you could kill yourself really quickly in that airplane.
Yeah, if you get inattentive and you're careless, and it's and it's interesting. You have this recent crash of the Bell 222 at Huntington Beach. And what's interesting is it appears as though there was likely a failure of the tail rotor, the pitch horn, but where they were in the height velocity diagram is critical. They were in the worst possible spot. And, they didn't have a lot of options. If they were higher, they could have pitched the nose over and probably done an auto. If they were lower, they probably could have done something called a cut gun, where you just drop the collective and you put it down. But they were inside this zone where you don't want to be. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. But
no, and the great thing is, because we don't spend enough time, we just accept it. Talking about that dead man's curve, crappy ass name for it, but when you're training, and this sounds kind of silly, but like when I was a standards guy at Fort Rucker, I would actually go out and fly with other guys from other countries. And I would ask them, can you show me what one of your training flights look like? And the first time that I saw a 50-foot hovering autorotation in a 58 Alpha Charlie, I thought the guy was crazy, but you're always shadowing the controls. Not that you got the time to fix it, but the first time I saw that, and I'm like, man, why the hell would you do a 50-foot hovering auto? You're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
Think about what we just talked about. The time that the engine's going to quit is during power applications traditionally. And in that particular case, whatever stress was going on with the hub, whether it was a maintenance issue or whether it was a fatigue issue, there's more stress placed on an aircraft as you continue to slow it down more and more and more and more. And those lift vectors have to start shifting to make things work. And when you shift that over, it's like, man, I sure hope everything's working right. But those low speeds, in that case, the dead man's curve, that's where, I hate to say it, guys, but if you're looking on board for like a search and rescue platform to get into that mission, remember what I said about there are no cowards here? It's like, you live in the dead man's curve. That's your job. And
you're accepting that as a distinct possibility. If you have a multi-engine aircraft, though, that helps mitigate some of that risk, not all of it, but it helps mitigate some.
Yeah, so bring us back to that 407 that you're starting to fly then, and how that affects. Because I took us down the aerodynamics, rotary wing aerodynamics rabbit hole, and I didn't mean to do that, but
no, I like it, dude. I love that.
You got. Listen, you're 2-on-1. You got two rotor heads against the Harriers. You're outnumbered, my friend.
So that when I came back out, though, in those 4 years that I spent, then went into Arizona DPS, they had that 407 platform. So in 2008, myself and another person got accepted into DPS, but they literally, because earlier you had asked, Repeat, did they make you go to the academy?
Yeah, right.
And I mean, think about this for a second, and us military guys know this. Like when you went to basic training, if you really got the game, they're paying you to eat and work out.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, so for those guys who are like, I just couldn't do basic training, hey, man, I ain't throwing shade, but I am. They were paying you to eat and work out.
Yeah.
So
and listen.
That's it. Shut your hole, write this down, regurgitate this to me. You know what I mean? But okay. So they offered that to myself and the other pilot that was hired at the time. And we both gladly accepted because of the 20-year retirement for the pension for LE.
Sure.
Which is how I'm actually able to sit here today. I bought some time, did my time with DPS, and then I've since walked away from DPS as that job with still having the contacts, but not flying with them anymore. Right. But that was because I did the 20-year plan.
Nice.
It was... after I got hired on, though, there are 4 bases with Department of Public Safety that you could have been assigned to. And traditionally, they'll hire you to a specific base so you know it before you come out to work.
Oh, okay. Right.
But there's one in Kingman in the northwestern part of the state. There's one in Flagstaff in the north part. There's one in Phoenix or Scottsdale, the central part of the state. And then there's one in Tucson in the southern part of the state. Now, on a full manning staffing schedule, you can have all 4 aircraft up. But honestly, in the time that I was with DPS, I may have seen that a handful of times total, where we had 3 aircraft up. And it wasn't the OR rate. The OR rate's clean. The maintenance is phenomenal. It was personnel. So how are they getting personnel? How are they getting their pilots? Where are their pilots coming from? How are they getting their medics? Do they have the experience? Where are their medics coming from? And then the train up for each one of those. So in a way, it's really nice, guys, because you are always training somebody new. You're either prepping a new pilot or you're prepping, and it's not because the job sucked in any way. They were just constantly going through staffing stuff, you know? Now, when myself and the other pilot came on, after we were hired, they literally had a 3.5-year hiring freeze. No new personnel to aviation at all.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was the last pilot hired in 2008, and my replacement for Kingman, because I went to Kingman, I drove almost 3 hours one way to that base for 5.5 years. That should be a testament. That should be a testament to how much I love.
You're committed.
How much fun you were having, right?
Yeah.
And the guys up there, you hear guys talk. They write these books, unit books, right? And they're the essentially no shit there I was books in deployments or things like. And one of the things, it's a recurring theme that you will find across the board with areas where you are in a situation where the family melds, and in DPS, the family melds at that point, and you don't feel like I have to, you feel like I get to go work with these people. And I was lucky enough to work with older guys, that kind of showed me the ropes and, hey, I know I'm a medic, but I'm going to tell you, don't do that.
Yeah.
But, and there's stories as to why some of the guys did that, but it was I get to work with these phenomenal guys. So 5.5 years, long time in Kingman. When my replacement showed up so that I could actually start training them, I was pretty relieved, as you can imagine, because my commute's going to go from almost 3 hours and it was going to drop down to 18 minutes one way.
Wow. No, that's huge.
Yeah. Ended up after Kingman, I came down here to Phoenix, and that's where I finished up my time with DPS, was in Phoenix with that closer commute. While we were doing that, though, they went over in 2017, they went over to that 429, and you showed a picture of it with a twin. So for those people who are curious, and I saw that post earlier, BDS, you can do anything once. The switching over to that twin, why did we do it? It was that hoist with a twin. You had mentioned twin engines, and if one quit. But there's some misconceptions about that, especially in helicopters, because you'll hit a limiting factor, the capabilities of that single engine to carry it in that particular environmental condition. So your dead man's curve that we talked about before, those twin engines didn't save you. That one engine isn't going to give you the flyaway that you need, not with the job that we do.
So, and I'm not saying that it is going to give you the flyaway, but it may give you a single engine capability to put the aircraft down in a controlled manner, and that's the difference that I see, and that's what I experienced, and that's where you and I are on the same page, because that aircraft, well, that's the Charlie model that's behind me, but when I first got into that one, that was the Alpha model, and that was the LTS 101, and we were underpowered. And we didn't have, you could, if you were lucky, you might be able to put yourself into the water in a controlled manner if you crapped that engine over the water, but you're not going to fly it away on a single engine with a helicopter, especially at the density altitudes that you're operating, but you're maybe able to be controlled in how you're going to be putting it down. And that's the bottom line.
So for those non-rotor heads out there, so what does that even mean? What does that look like? Being controlled when you put it down. So I can I'm going to blow that second good engine up. I'm going to destroy it. But my intentions right now, I could care less about that engine.
Yeah,
I just
can save the airplane.
I want
Don't
the
need
people
the engine.
inside. I want the people inside. That's it. So if I pull the guts out of this thing and pieces start flying everywhere, just make sure that you listen to that pre-crash, that it stays in your head. Right. Do not get out of this aircraft. Do not get out of this aircraft. Let it do what it's going to do. If it's on fire, that's where we're working with something entirely different. But more people like that, that we had a call here up in Arizona where a pilot had to get out of an A-Star. He went to take a leak. He didn't lock down that collective head, and that collective vibrated up a little bit. The aircraft started to move. He was right at the end of that span of that tip path plane, and it cut this guy right in the back. So we just, and in honor of Bruce Harrell, who literally his day had just passed the other day. He was a medic that we actually lost because a blade struck his head. He took a break for just a second. He stood up, and he was just outside the disc when this lady dropped her purse, got a little snagged. He got a little tunnel vision, and unfortunately,
heartbreaking.
Something.
And the thing
really
is, these are professionals who are around the airplane and understand the dangers about it, and still get caught. It happens, and it's heartbreaking to hear and see that.
You'll see guys. You go out on a search and rescue mission, and you have a guy that's down there who knows. Hey, make sure that I remove my hat or cinch this thing down so tight that I'm white knuckling my hat on my head. Which at that point, just take the damn thing off. Yeah. But everything ranging from that to, iPro. And there are times where I've had a ground unit, where I need to land close to you, and they're trying to pick an LZ, whether it was a gunshot wound or whether it was a wreck or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they know what this aircraft can do, like the damage the rotor system can do, the wind effects. But they're so focused and fixated on getting that aircraft in there, plugging in that piece of the puzzle, that they completely forgot to shut their doors. They have their Smoky on their head right now. They're in their Class Bs, and they're going to get trashed. So you just make another turn outside the LZ, reach out on the radio and say, hey, brother, it's going to get dusty. Or, I don't like your LZ. I'm going to scoot it back just a bit. Or call in fire and wet down the LZ, and utilize that technique. But the one thing I don't want to do, I don't want to trash that trooper's uniform. And maybe he's tunnel visioned right now, and he's just not thinking, just give him a friendly reminder like, hey, man, you want to climb in your car for a sec? We're going to shoot this approach in,
Okay.
But that gets
it's going to get messy.
Yeah. And that's that tunnel vision that it can happen, even like that pilot who we just witnessed this unfortunate crash. We, as rotor heads, we know
exactly what happened.
Exactly what happened and exactly what you need to do. But we have the luxury of our living room and our computer and our coffee and no stress
and slow motion
and this guy, like,
you need about 3 to 5 seconds to process and take in that information, and then another 3 seconds to act on it, and then 3 seconds to implement it.
We can easily call this the Sully curve. This the Sully curve.
Yeah.
Because they were, those testers and the engineers, they were all convinced, like, you could have gotten this done.
Right.
Well, no, factor in the freaking Sully curve. What's the human,
There's a reaction time. Yep.
That's it, man. What is it?
And probably the 5 stages of grief too, oh, this isn't happening.
That's it.
What? Yeah, there's that moment of what the fuck am I? And now by the time you've made that decision and you're putting some sort of action into place, it's too late.
Yeah. So for those that are curious, I have lost an engine, and it happens that quick. I was on a terrain flight takeoff and just autoed it right into a very shallow body of water, and I had 2 students on board. That was an occurrence. And then I had
was it Army or DPS?
Army. I was teaching.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And then we were out looking for this suicidal dude up in Kingman, and it was the second time this happened across the country at the time. It might have been 2009, 2010. But we had the doors off. You can remove the doors on the 407. And I had a medic on board in the front left with her door off. So she's looking down there also for this guy. And suicidals, generally, certain things will stand out. You can find a suicidal unless they don't want you to. And we can talk about that in any detail you want.
Sure.
But I had a cop in back, a KPD, Kingman police officer cop in the back.
Okay.
And I'm flying, looking down, almost like we're doing vertical reference stuff, Sticks. Like I'm looking down, but I'm looking for the slightest signature, color or movement that's going to cue me into this spot.
Yep.
And the nose of the aircraft kind of veered to the right without any pedal application. And I was like, okay, that was a little weird. So I didn't say anything to the team just yet because it just happened. And I'm like, maybe gust of wind, a little bit weird.
Mm-hmm.
Hadn't felt that before. So I went back outside and it did it again. But this time it took it to a harder yaw. And then I sat up in my seat. And so now you've got my attention.
You got my attention.
Yeah. But remember, you're talking about these delays. A computer already would have kicked off and said, hey, idiot, you're having a governor malfunction, an N2 governor malfunction on the high side. This thing's eventually going to overspeed on you, and you're going to spin out like a top if you don't either auto-rotate this thing or go into manual mode.
Yeah. Denial, bargaining, acceptance.
So remember, I flew the 58 Deltas, though, in the Army. We practiced all the time. Remember, we talked about training as well and what you're ready for in training. In the Army, we trained and practiced all the time with what was called manual throttle operations. And that's where, you do get to carry a pistol with a DPS if you're a cop. If you're sworn, you actually get to carry one even if you're not sworn, but there are some caveats to that. And if you're curious, I'd be more than happy to. I was a firearms instructor.
And there's a good story that's coming that features that. So
true. So you never know, you might need it. But the second yaw brought me inside, and then I announced to the crew, hey guys, everybody come inside. You're going to hear some bells and whistles. And that's when I reverted to manual mode, and I asked the medic, put out a call to radio and let them know that we're having a technical issue over to the airport. But what
Mayday.
You know what? I'm an idiot. At no time did I make either the pan call or the mayday call just because I had control of the aircraft.
Yep.
But my objective with manual throttle ops, what you've done is you've taken the governor out of play. Now your throttle is you're directly connected to your hydromechanical unit, to that.
You're the throttle, or you're the governor.
That's it. You are the throttle now.
And
so
I'm guessing that has good implications and bad implications. You can screw that up too.
A rotor-head gets this real quick. If I'm driving so if I speed up the throttle, it's going to speed up that rotor system up top.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, one of the things about helicopters, aviation in general, is action reaction. So when people are curious, like, why does the aircraft want to yaw in that direction anytime I advance the throttle? Action reaction. So if I increase the momentum, the speed of that blade up top, with what's hanging underneath it being stationary, it will literally make an effort to rotate in the opposite direction, and it will eventually try to match the speed as best it can relative to the mass that it has. But that's what that anti-torque. That's when that anti-torque comes into way. That tail rotor.
It's going to seek equilibrium.
That's it.
It just may not be the equilibrium that you want.
Yeah. So suffice to say, in that particular case, they called them broken wings in the military, like if you salvaged a perfectly good aircraft. In this case, they didn't give a broken wing, but basically I flew a broken aircraft over to an airport, climbed out of it and said, hey, come fix your shit. And that was it. But it was the second time that this had happened. They had to reach out as well. And it was associated with the governor. And it just basically it was seeking. So it was trying to find. And on that third time that it did it, because it did it the first time, meh. Second time, sitting in the seat. Third time, it tried to take it to the next level. Yeah, and that was the manual mode. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's hunting higher and higher and higher. It's got a trend.
So what listeners may not understand when we talk about a governor, so if the engine RPM speeds up, the governor, in trying to maintain a constant rotor RPM, will bring the gas back. If it slows down, it's going to feed more gas in. So as we're pulling pitch on the collective, that increases the load on the engine, which then causes it to make adjustments on there. Often this is done, and this is all now done electronically with what we call a FADEC, or full authority digital engine control. But it's also was previously done usually with a pneumomechanical system, which was notorious for having either air leaks or some sort of mechanical failures that would often lead to either, and there's a high setting and a low setting on that governor. You can have a high side failure or a low side failure. So,
sure.
And
excellent description to bring that kind of down into a more simplistic term, but it's actually easier to fly a turbo, a jet, than it is to fly the reciprocating, because I don't have to match.
Absolutely. Right.
And, for those people who are wondering, like, what does the military fly right now? The Army, I know, they literally, their first tenth of an hour is trained in a twin turbo. So they're running turbines on day one. And there's pros and cons to that, but they never do a touchdown auto rotation until they get to their units, if the unit does touchdown autos.
Right.
So that could be a little tricky, for a guy that's never
actually done an auto.
Yeah. And like, is this normal?
Right? Yeah. Well, I'll full interested disclosure, my first auto rotation left about maybe 150 feet of, 200 feet of good track into the ground.
Skid marks, nicely done.
To which my instructor pulled us up into a hover, whipped us around at 180 degrees, says, "Well, you did a nice job with that auto, but we're going to bring that down to about 3 feet."
There you go.
So, and you guys, you were in the 57s?
The 57s, yep.
Yeah.
57s, we did the Bravos. So it was like the TH-57A and the B. Yeah. And the B had like a stabilization in it, and that's where you did your instrument training. So it was a little more fun on that. That was a little bit easier. But those first couple hours hovering in the Alpha, you're all over the place. They hand you this helicopter, ask you to keep it in the state of Florida, and you won't be able to.
Somewhere in there, But well, let's get back to, so you get hired on with DPS. So you were hired on as a pilot, and then did you fly for a while before you went to the academy? Did you do that right away, or how'd that work?
So I'm going to tie in a little bit of that does have relevancy to life choices. And I had done some stupid shit when I was a kid.
No.
Like we all did. Well, DPS is like, yeah, you're so freaking stupid. We're just taking your application. We're going to drop it. We don't want you working for us. So I wrote a 2-page, this was during the application process. So I wrote a 2-page letter, essentially summating, the stupid kid that did that shit. And then the difference between that kid and the 38-year-old with a master's degree in criminal justice and a minor in political science who
had a little time in the military,
time in the service, great leaders that, point me in the right direction and stuff like that. So I wasn't the same person, right? Not too many of us are at the, the difference between 18 and 37 years old.
God.
Right. God damn.
I might have evolved a little.
Oh, man.
If I could only be as smart now as I was when I was 18.
Man, I knew everything.
Right?
Just ask me.
Oh, man.
So, fuck, I don't even know where I was going with that.
You wrote a letter.
So you wrote a letter, and then you had actually somebody in your life who had mentored you quite a bit. That.
Oh my goodness! So I wasn't sure. I will tie in Bob. So Bob Busey is he was a great mentor and friend of mine. That, man, you're lucky at the end of your lifespan if you can count this many good friends, right? I mean, you're lucky. You really did something right if you can count the number of people that'll fit on you. But the more you can count, the better. But really, really true friends. And Bob was that guy. And I'm going to give some dates and years and some of the lessons that he taught, and then it'll help make sense.
All right, cool.
But I had always wanted to box from being whatever it is. We all had passions, right? Whether it's shooting or, playing with frogs or whatever the fuck. But for me, I wanted to box. Well, we moved around a lot as a kid. I got picked on a lot as a kid because You move to Mississippi and you got a West Virginia accent, you get picked on. Then you move back up to Indiana with a Mississippi accent, you get picked on. But eventually, I wanted to learn how to box and take care of myself. And Bob, as it happened, was a boxing coach. Yeah. Oh shit, sorry. What was my flight limit when I first hired on? I'll answer that real quick. When I hired with DPS, I was sitting at about 2,000 hours. Yeah. And that's generally that is the absolute minimum requirement that you needed with DPS was 2,000 pilot in command with 100 night unaided. Don't ask me why. I have my own opinions about whether night unaided is even valuable at this stage of the game. But that means basically you don't have any night vision assisting device on your face. So night is just that. It's night, 100 night unaided. So you're using external references, whether it's light sources or you have residual light that you can fly to a checkpoint. There are no NVG requirements as far as the hours are concerned. And that's it. 2,000 pilot command, 100 night unaided, and that'll get you in the door. You still have to pass a check ride. But that letter, after they read, to go back to that, getting into the DPS, I wrote that letter and HR reached out to me. They loved everything I had written in the letter and basically said, hey, did you write this letter? And I said, yeah, I wrote it. And that was the DPS letter, the 2-page letter I wrote. But where that ties into Bob was when I did learn, he taught me how to box, all right, at 17. And during that time frame, the 17 years old, it's 1987. He taught me how to box. 1988, I go in the service. I'm in the service from 88 to 92, and he writes me all the time, like once a week, writes me all. And keep in mind his age. He was 67 in 1997. Okay. So that generally and I was 27 in 97. So that show he's about 40 years of difference in age. Okay. But when he wrote me, he was basically giving me life lessons and basically doing a step in as a dad. So the stories he would tell me or the things that he would try and teach me, they were all like mentorship during that entire stage. Well, in that entire 4-year period, he was essentially my primary contact to the civvy world, to the civilian world. And honestly, guys, when I got out of the service at the end of my service obligation, I knew I wanted to go into college, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do it because while in the Air Force, I did community college, the Air Force, but I didn't enter into a bigger, better college degree until I got out of the service, but I wasn't sure where I was going to live or how I was going to do that. Bob actually offered to take me in and said that I could live with him while I was going to school. So keep in mind, what he knows about me is what he got from me as a student when I was 17 up until I went into basic training about 6 months later. That's everything he knew about me. So he's literally offering a 22-year-old kid the opportunity to come stay in his house for a very insignificant amount of money as long as I went into school and I did school. So when I got out of the Air Force in 92 and I started college, the 2-year degree and then the 4-year degree, he essentially proofread my papers. And he helped me write my papers. And we'd bounce ideas off each other. For instance, I took a speech class one time and he said, well, why don't you do a speech on the Bataan Death March? And I'm like, what the fuck is a Bataan Death March? And when you ask an older guy that, he's like, he wants to smack you. He wants to knock your head through your apple, right? The older generation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
How do you not know that? Yeah.
How do you not know? How do you not know? Because you could summate everything in the Bataan Death March. Like, why is the older generation still to this day, assuming some of the WW2 guys are around, why do they to this day still hate Japanese? Read about the Bataan Death March. Yeah. And I don't hate Japanese. I'm just saying, like, I'm putting things in perspective, right? But he helped me write. And then that writing style that helped essentially formulate that 2-page letter that I wrote to DPS much later in life, long after Bob had passed away. That writing style, that technique, those words that I selected, that was all what he had taught me as I was going through college. So I was essentially utilizing a piece of Bob to allow me to get this job with DPS. So when it came to amount of influence, Bob was like a father figure. He was a coach. If you ever read Tuesdays with Maury, I don't know if either
A
of you
long
guys have
time
ever
ago.
read.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
I could have written that book, Tuesdays with Maury, because that was, with the exception of me living there all the time, Tuesdays with Maury was about that mentorship and that love and that friendship that goes deeper than, sometimes family. That's essentially the buddy that I had with Bob. And that's, if I could make that any more clear, how significant that guy was, absolutely beautiful person.
Sure.
The shit thing is, when he ended up had a major heart attack, but he did it in Wendy's. And I normally would stand on the right-hand side of him, would go in there, would get a coffee, and we'd talk about, because we would get done with our boxing session. And then we'd go in there, have a cup of coffee. I'd do my puzzle and he'd do his crossword puzzle. And normally I stand on the right side. That day I stood on the left. And when he had his heart attack and fell over, he fell to his right, where I should have been standing, and ended up giving him CPR and just trying to bring him back right there. That was it. And that's when I was like, okay, my buddy's gone. And after that nervous breakdown, you're like, because keep in mind, up to this point, I had just finished, when Bob passed away, I had just finished my 4-year degree. And it was kind of like a now what moment. Well, Bob literally, if you guys are familiar with any of the law schools in Ohio, he offered to pay for Capital Law School for me in Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Now, Capital Law School is not chump change.
Oh.
It is a very good school, and you will get a job when you graduate and pass the bar. And he I'm not kidding. To his, like, if his family could hear
but then
this,
you got to be a lawyer. So there's there's that.
But remember being a standards pilot?
Yeah.
You're an attorney every day.
Yeah. Right on. Exactly.
And now I'm a babysitter and an attorney, and I'm trying to help a psych patient. I mean, don't do that.
Fair enough.
Don't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And here's why. Look at this regulation. Do you see this?
Yeah. Right. No kidding.
So that's the significance. Thanks for bringing that up, Sticks. That is the significance of Bob Busey. That guy was a huge influence and mentor in my life. And
that's always huge when you have that benefit of that type of influence in your life. So
they hired you, and there was some time. I'm assuming you flew right away versus the academy. Am I correct in that? Or did you go to the academy right away?
We answered that. What was the flight hour limit? So let's talk about how did they manage the pilots? Yeah,
because that's where I wanted to go exactly. Yeah, but you still didn't go to the academy. Let me just get that one out of the way. How long was it before you went to the academy?
A week.
Oh, a week. Okay, and so you finish the academy, and then you get into the they put you in the pilot seat. But yeah, let's go what you had to do, because I understand that you needed more time with them.
I did.
Yeah.
So remember that, I don't know if you guys do recall, when I talked about that multi-ship that we had where I met the other guy in the tan flight suit in the hospital.
Yep.
The time I met Ken Twigg 2 years into my time with Native Air. So I started work with them in 2004. In 2006, I met Ken Twigg in the hospital at one of the trauma centers, and with the tan flight suit and everything else. And I'm like, who the heck are you? And like, what are you doing? And Ken was just a man. You ever meet that guy that's just wicked smart and wicked fast?
Yep.
Like that's Ken Twigg. Twigg is wicked quick, and he's funny. But that's when he proceeded to tell me, this is the company that I work for. This is what we do. And I'm like, holy shit, man. Remember we were talking about the Coast Guard and the mission?
Yep.
This mission could not be more in line with literally overlap every adrenaline rush that you are gunning for, that you're aiming for. You will likely get it, or you're going to get really close with Arizona Department of Public Safety Aviation. You're going to get really fucking close to your limit, and sometimes you will hit your limit. Like I hit my limit a few times where my left leg will start to shake, and there are times that I know I can push through that adrenaline, and then there are other times where I'm like, no, man. Left leg shake with hair on back of neck equals bad mojo. So I'm gonna go ahead and peel away from that, which, one of the stories that you're going to talk about later, that's what happened. The limitations of the aircraft spiked, wind grabbed the tail. Remember we talked about the surface area of the tail rotor? The wind grabbed that tail just right. I looked at a limitation. Remember we were talking about single engine aircraft?
Yep.
I looked over, checked the gauge, and it's nope. Hair on the back of the neck, that left leg shaking, and if I tried to scoot in any further to this particular mission, we will rotate like a top, or I'm going to over torque the guts out of this aircraft. It's going to be one of two things, and I'm not about to let this thing spin. So I would end up going in there knowing that I'm going to smoke this engine out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's when
you know what you did the what I considered to be the most difficult maneuver in a search and rescue helicopter, which is the 180-degree turn.
Those are hard, guys.
They made the decision that this is not the approach that what we're going to do, and that is because especially when you've got all of this equipment, all of this people, everybody's looking at you, and they're
counting on you to be there. Yeah.
You are, and here's the thing: add a force multiplier to that. The guy that you're going in there to extract, he hears your rotor system, and he's being told via radio that his extraction is on its way.
Right.
Do the math. You know, now this, so when he hears you peel away, you know, and you talk with some of these survivor stories, like at that point, I thought I was dead. I thought I was done.
Yeah.
It's like,
we had one of those guys who was sitting in his raft off the coast of California, and the helicopter came over, looked at him, and left. They had to go. He's like, "What the hell?"
Gotta get gas, man.
They had to go get gas, and he's like, "I'll go with you. I don't mind."
You don't know. It doesn't work like that, buddy.
Yeah.
So out of I've forgotten what my number, out of so I think there was 17 lives saved that I'm credited with out of my logbook, and another 20 something lives assisted, but almost all of them said that we flew over them multiple times before we actually got them, especially if we're in search mode, and
here's what's amazing. We did this one time. Fortunately, it only happened a couple times, but for those who aren't familiar with the search world, there are various types of grid or circular or pattern techniques that you can use that will, based on the information that you're provided, you may be able to plug and play that information in and then use your helicopter in a way that would accomplish that mission the fastest. Or it may be like, we can get to this point, then we'll have to make a fuel turn and then come back and do this iteration again. But covering those patterns are critical, and how you're going to get in there and what you're going to look at. But when we would look for certain people and it was a generic search, we know that they're in this 5-mile radius. I would utilize a grid pattern search with cardinal headings and box it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we had one where we flew over this guy multiple times. So when ground finally found him, they asked him, "Did you hear the helicopter?" "Oh yeah, I heard it." "Did you come out to try and signal to wave to the aircraft?" "No." What was the reasoning behind that?" "I was embarrassed."
Oh man.
I have a better one. I've got a better one. So we were up at the Wave, and for those who aren't familiar with the Wave in Arizona, it's a coveted hiking location. You literally have to submit a lottery to get into it, to hike the Wave for one day. It's beautiful. Ansel Adams did a lot of beautiful black and white shots. But we went up to do this extraction up there. It was nighttime. I have a single medic, a Bell 407, and we're looking for this guy. And we fly over this guy several times. Well, the Wave has there's a lot of erosion and water manifestation, like erosion manifestation up in the Wave.
Okay.
And this guy was in a crack. He wasn't perfectly level. He wasn't on our level. He was a little bit lower in one of those eroded areas. So the next day, one of our sister ship went out, and they found him right away. Yeah, he was right here. We flew in. We saw the Wave. We went and picked him up. That's the Wave. Now imagine, picture flying in that at night, right, under night vision goggles. How's your depth perception right now?
Yeah, not very good.
Because it literally looks like the Scream from that one famous painter.
Right, yeah.
I can't.
Vincent Van Gogh.
Yeah, it looks like a Van Gogh, like the wavy shit.
Yeah.
So plug that into your brain with a set of night vision goggles on.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
the next morning when they find this guy, they go in, they land next to him, they extract him. Jeff Lampert goes up to the guy and says, "Didn't you see or hear the aircraft?" "Yeah, they flew over me a lot. I just had no way of getting their attention. All I have is this camera." So I mean, and we're all looking at each other like, did that old motherfucker just say he had a camera?
Camera have a flash bulb on it? Asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So yes, the camera worked. Yes, the battery was good. And yes, he could have flashed us, but chose not to because he didn't think, you know what I mean? And in this particular case, Occam's razor, you know, the most simple approach.
Explanation is the most likely.
Now here's what's funny, guys. You know this. You've seen this. You know that guy was on the ground waving. That dumb motherfucker. Look, no, I shouldn't say that. Block that out. I shouldn't say that.
No, I know what you mean. It always amazes me. See, we've been through a good bit of training for high stress situations. It's how you become a military pilot in particular. And it always amazes me for instance, I recently saw some video from flooding in Houston in a car going under an underpass and getting washed away. And the driver just kind of sitting there literally looking around like, well, now what? How about getting out of the fucking car? You know, break your window and get out.
Right.
It wasn't like it was even going down river or anything like that. It was just being washed. It might have been able to go 50, 60 feet before it was going to be stopped by the bridge abutment. But you're just going, oh my God, why are you sitting there waiting for someone to come get you? So people don't think to help themselves when the world collapses around them. And it's amazing because our paradigm is act. Don't sit and wait for something to happen. Act. Do something. So I kind of get it. I think that's the mode that some people get into.
No, and repeat, I'm convinced of this. The people that listen to or watch your show, they're more in line with those who, if they saw something, they would react.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like, if your brain has pulled you over to a podcast like this, there's a 99% chance that you are the guy that would run into the burning building.
Right.
You just haven't been tested yet.
Right.
Yeah. You're not
maybe
the lowest
you have.
common denominator.
And if you have, reach out, shoot me an email at repeat@solerowes.us, REPETE, and let's get you on the show.
Dude, if you've ever read John Steinbeck's, in one of those, he has a story about hubris, pride, and then the challenge of who self is. And in the story, at the end of this old timer's life, he's tested again, and he is the hero that he always was curious if he would be. You know what I mean? And I think it's really neat. And we've seen these guys, not to go too off topic, but I worked with several people in my day that always said, I should have went SF. I could have went SF. And I personally do know individuals who've gone through the schoolings. I tried it myself and failed in the 5th week. I was a 13th member on the team, and then they graduated with 10. So, hey, man, I ain't throwing shade. Maybe you can do that. But stop opening your fucking mouth and pretending to be somebody you're not. Show us.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not to get too off topic, but that used to drive me freaking nuts, man. You ain't, you're the hero that you will be when the time permits it to be.
Exactly. Yep.
And up until that moment, you're a fucking chatterbox.
Yeah.
So
it's acting non verba, deeds, not words.
Yeah.
That's it. And I didn't mean to go too far off, but the other thing I was laughing at Dizzy here because one of the things we said, he's like, that's going to leave a skid mark. I thought that was pretty appropriate.
Yeah, right.
With the underwear emoji.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh yeah.
That's a good one.
I got some funny stories about that too, man.
Right.
Like shit myself.
Well, we're actually kind of getting short for this week, so let's bang out a couple stories. One of my favorites that I heard on another show that you talked about was essentially what you did after you failed your check ride with DPS.
The way
then your next check ride.
So the DPS ride, what you'll do is you'll fly with a senior pilot traditionally at that base or a training pilot at that base. Well, when I took my first check ride with DPS, I was heavily reliant on a Garmin 296, I believe it was. It was a flight computer. I was relying on it. I wasn't fully comfortable with the glass that we had in the aircraft, the steam gauges in the aircraft. So I was kind of reverting to that. I was slow to get it, and I completely busted my first check ride. Just blew it. Okay. And when I went out at the end of that ride, it was like, what a fucking idiot,
Some
But
days you're the
outcome-
windshield, some days you're the bug.
And you know what? What's funny is even after you do get online with the program and become a line pilot, there still may be that day where, you ride the bull, and there may be the day that the bull rides you. It all depends on, how are we looking at that day. But so I went back for retraining, did the retraining process, threw it, and my trainer threw in some more stuff with me to make sure, like, hey, we also do this. Like I've lost track of, downed airplanes and body recoveries and things like that you just don't know, working fires, slinging weed.
Sure.
You just didn't know what you were going to do. But on the second check ride that we went out, now I've got the supervisor is with me in the left seat, and he is going to accomplish my check ride. And that could mean good, or it could mean like, oh my God, I need to start looking for another job.
What a concept.
I had good trainers though. And that was one of the great things with DPS. They will spend the time with you, and then you'll know. Guys, we know if you're just not meant for it. And in this case, like, things worked out. And on my second check ride, on the ride itself, we actually got a call for a pursuit that dropped out. And this was going to be one of my first PC rides. I'm making the decisions. We all know the sandbag pilot, right? A check pilot's going to be the sandbag pilot. Yep. He's not going to do shit for you unless you specifically ask him to accomplish that task. And you have to be very clear on what you want him to do. In this case, though, we were within, it was less than 10 minutes from a north-south road, State Route 93 that runs north and south, that essentially connects Phoenix to Kingman.
Okay. And
this call drops out for a pursuit for a motorcycle. I didn't know then what I know now, like catching a motorcycle, as a cop, that should be a really, really great feeling, because they think they're going to get you. And then when you get them, it just takes all the wind out of their sails, because for them, it's a game, because they're going to get out. They're going to go through their license issues. They might get their bike taken away, but they're adrenaline junkies. They're going to put their Mohawk helmet back on, and they're going to go do it again in another year.
Yep.
In this case, though, the guy, he was by himself on the bike. He was northbound, but he had made the mistake of coming off State Route 93, and he turned onto a single lane dirt road that paralleled 93 northbound.
Okay.
Well, two DPS officers, we're now called troopers, but two DPS officers at the time basically created a wedge at the entry point of where he went into that single lane dirt road, and they parked there and waited. I didn't know they were there, though, which was kind of neat. I knew that they were close, but I came in. We find the bike right away because of the dust, dust trail.
Okay, sure.
Right.
By the way, this is a daytime find. So I don't have a camera operator. I don't need a camera operator, not for this.
And but there are trees, not open desert, obviously, right?
In this area, it's right at the cusp of high desert.
Okay.
So it's at about 3,500 feet elevation. So if you go up another 500 feet, you're going to start encountering smaller trees.
Okay.
Where we were at, it was generally clear, like general low desert, kind of desert fuel, desert environment.
Okay.
So you did have an undulating road system, single lane road system.
Okay.
It had not rained for an extended period of time. So the road system was dirt. And dry and dust, so you could easily see that dust peel off behind it. And there were no trees, high trees or bushes that prohibited the visual that you had looking
so that
at
made it
the
even
bike
easier then, obviously,
as you were flying to the target.
Okay.
So you picked this guy up several miles out.
Okay.
If that paints the right picture.
Yep.
And that's exciting. For a cop pilot, that's always exciting, right? It's like, because we did this one time, and this fucker was on a quad, and it was almost the same scenario, but he would not yield. And Kingman PD was way behind him. They had called us for the assist. So I'm like, okay, I can play that game. So I made a low pass so he could see that it was a police aircraft, and he didn't comply, right? Get off your bike, get prone. He didn't comply. So I peeled around. He didn't have a helmet or iPro on. I came around and I put the aircraft literally 5 feet off the deck, and I just sandblasted his face. He got the message. He gets off his quad, and then the safest place for your face is in the dirt, and that's where he put it. Yeah. So at that point, I asked the medic I was with. I'm like, "Do you want the arrest?" And I was with a seasoned medic, a senior medic, and he's like, "No, get to elevation and let these ground guys take it. I want to go home."
Yeah. There you go.
Nice.
Hey, dude, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Well, hard way it is. All right.
So, and I didn't mean to get too off topic there, but
yeah. So you've got this bike.
And on this particular case, he was going northbound, dust signature. I made that pass with this guy that I would later use repeatedly in pursuits. So I made the pass with this guy, and he got the message. But he turned around thinking, I need to be on hardball. I've got a helicopter on my ass now. I need speed. So he wanted that hardball. Well, what he didn't know was PD had already squeezed off his exit. So we took the north side, and this single lane dirt road, when he turned around and did the 180, he's basically heading right back into two dudes that have their vehicles wedged on a single lane dirt road. So they're out of their vehicles with long guns pointed at them. Oh. And dude, what was really neat, keep in mind, I didn't know they were there until like I'm southbound with them, and I would always fly my pursuits lower. The stress, like, I don't care. This sounds terrible, guys. I don't care if you wreck. I don't care. Yeah. Wreck. I didn't wake up this morning saying that this was my challenge. But when we were doing that and I was relatively low, there were two knoll hills that were right between me and that wedge that I couldn't see. So when I popped up over the wedge, over the two hills, and I saw two PD there, and they're both drawn out with the long guns out, like giving these. And keep in mind, I'm a new cop / pilot with DPS. So this is my first introduction to fuck yes, we have ground power.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yep.
So that relationship later, it will seal the deal as a good crew member. If you want to be a good crew member and get in this job, buddy, you treat those guys with the utmost respect, and keep in mind, those are your customers. Right. The guy that was on the bike, the guy on the bike for me is a means to an end. My customer base is the person who picked up the phone and said, I need help.
Right on. Yeah.
So in this particular case, it happened to be two cops, right? Or district one, but we got that bastard. And the only thing I wanted was to see his face, which later I would incorporate that into like there's a walk of shame, right? Well, when you catch somebody, there's just they're standing in it's the handcuff stand of shame. And they're standing there with their freaking backs, their hands behind their back, and they're leaning against a wall or a vehicle. And like we did everything that we were supposed to do. We accomplished the mission. Well, now it's time for me to go static, and I would like to see you. So I'd walk past the person and just look at them, and I might or might not have chuckled and laughed at some of these people.
Sucker!
Yep. That's it, man. Fucking, how'd that work out, bitch?
Yeah. That's awesome. I would have envisioned you coming over the top and then doing like a return to target, and then coming into a quick stop, and then just giving them the bird.
Oh, man.
Oh, I know you said you're coming close to an end. I have stories that literally
we're going to hit those next week. Absolutely. But so let's do this. Let's end up, let's end on the So There I Was that you opened on. But before we do, so two more things. Ending on the So There I Was, circle back. And what is either the funniest or the most memorable rescue or arrest in which you participated? Something's got to pop to your mind right away. Probably 5 things, but what was the first one that comes to your mind? Is the most memorable or the closest you came to checking out yourself? Funniest?
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
It did not involve a rescue.
Okay.
We were trying to land to extract. Oh. And because I have a lot of rescues that make you, more curious about what happens next. But in this case, we were trying to land in a pen out in the darkness over by Superstition Mountains, and they had a patient that we needed to extract to take to the hospital. They had called for a box. We were the faster selection, so we were going to take that and go. When I shot my approach in, you guys remember, rotary drivers, the stay ahead of ETL and shoot your approach forward of the dust cloud. What a fucking that's so fucking stupid. That doesn't. That works in the box, and that's it.
Yeah, and ETL is
That's, effective
ETL,
translational lift.
effective
There you go.
translational
Yep.
lift. Yeah. There.
So if we're staying in front of that dust cloud, but we touch those skids down just in front of it, well, that's great. If I don't slow down too much and the dust catches up with me, that's great. If the ground isn't undulating and going up and down, that's great. If there aren't any obstacles that I have to watch out for, like stumps, trees, rocks, maybe a body or a person. So I'm shooting, I shot this approach, and I'm thinking, this was when I was still relatively new with TPS. I shot the approach with forward speed thinking I could beat this dust cloud. And holy shit, man, that was my introduction to Arizona talcum. And you're not, I don't care who you are. Unless you touch down, you can touch down at 30 knots.
That's my introduction to Arizona talcum. Yep.
It
Everything looks brown. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what happened is it started to move forward, and my peripheral caught up with that dust cloud, because I do have my forward grimes, my forward white light on. It's nighttime, and I call to abort as that dust cloud is just getting ready to move up into the 10 and 2. So I still have my tunnel that I can escape with.
Okay.
Right.
But here's some of the things that I later learned how to do that I didn't do at the time. I didn't set a heading bug before I went into that. I didn't take a good look at the pressure altimeter. I didn't hover over the spot to see if I could vacuum out the desert, to see how much dust I could actually move before making that attempt in. So when I came in, I shot the approach. It was talcum, and there's a difference between a talcum approach and a dusty approach. Talcum will eat your lunch almost all day long unless you wet it down or find another spot. That's it, plain and simple. To beat talcum, you got to play some games. But as I shot it, I called abort when the dust came into the 10 and 2, and as I'm pulling pitch to climb away from that, because I was only a couple feet off the deck before touching skids, touching dirt, a barbed wire fence went right under the skid. Woo!
Oh God!
That'll ruin your evening, won't it?
Yeah, dude. So I don't know. It wasn't. I had plenty of freaking rescue, like scared the shit out of me stuff, but in that particular case, that's one where I thought I had the training I needed, and what I really needed was a little bit more time flying in Arizona's desert. So what did I do with that? Later on down the road, we came in later. I requested an alternate LZ. We made the extraction successfully. So this gets into a couple things. Your pilot and command decisions and your choices that you're going to make, it's okay to bounce those off the crew, guys. So if you're new to this game, ask your crew. It's okay. Yeah. You know, you're not going to be seen as a weak person. You're going to be seen as part and parcel to the crew.
Part of the team, yeah. Oh, thank God that dust was coming up when it did, and you said, "Well, I'm done. We'll do it." Oh, I can't imagine the shot of piss that went through your heart when that fence went underneath you.
Dude, and that was when it did, was when I saw the barbed wire, the white light and the barbed wire, and I'm like, holy fuck. And God knows, man, because you know that thing's barely in the ground. So I'm gonna be flying away with God knows how many feet of freaking barbed wire hanging off my skid.
Until it catches on something.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And then you're just going to basically dynamic rollover going forward. You know,
it's going to grab something. That's what it's supposed to do.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, I'm good.
All right.
You know.
Well, let's circle back to So There I Was, and then we'll say our farewells for the week and bring you back next week.
All right. So you guys want to hear about this?
Yep.
There I Was story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So this one's meaty, and just so that you're aware, any of the data that we've transmitted on this, it does go to court on July of 2026, and these two individuals that you're going to be hearing about are both wanted for murder one, or essentially in this, it's going to be an aggravated murder. And if anybody did follow this story, they were career criminals. These two individuals that we're going to talk about here real quick.
Okay.
We picked up this call on a day where I had a pilot that I was trying to train. Remember that we were talking about always training somebody?
Yep.
So Mike Overlees was a guy that I flew with in the 90s back at Fort Carson. So this is now 2023, I believe. So we also said that aviation is a small community. Yep. So I'm now sitting in a cockpit with a pilot that I flew with back in the late 90s, which I thought was pretty cool. So he's in the right seat, and that's where the pilot in command sits in a helicopter. And then I have a very experienced combat medic in the back, former SF. And then there's myself on the front left as probably one of the worst camera operators on the planet. But I do know how to fly the aircraft, so we're going to go with that's why they put me in there to talk to this guy. So that's the crew that we had. The aircraft that we had was the 429, that twin engine with a really good camera system. That's the aircraft that we were in. It was 911. The call came out for a stolen that was northbound on 87, State Route 87. And when we first picked it up, it was near a place called Mount Ord, and it was northbound. And they were wanted for some other illegal activity. I don't know if at that time, we don't have strong armed robbery here, but we do have robbery. And I can't recall if they were wanted for like robbery or theft of the vehicle itself. But this vehicle was stolen that they were in, and they were northbound on this system. It was really easy to pick up the call, though. Like, when you're thinking about how did you get a visual to the target, this was a daytime call. Winds were generally out of the south, didn't exceed 15 knots with clear skies. It was a normal Arizona day, and the temperatures were in the 90s. It was a nice day. That's going to be important later because after 50 plus minutes of chasing this guy and watching him try and take himself out, try and take other people out on the road system with his car, he literally drove towards certain construction areas and he was aiming towards people. This guy was he wasn't doing it to take himself out. He was doing it essentially like the same reason a sniper would shoot a good guy in the box. You're going to take more assets to try and recover the shots, person, right? So in his case, he's trying to take out somebody else so that we can concentrate our assets in that realm. That's how I would see it, right? He's trying to get all the resources elsewhere so that he can make his getaway.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the game of chicken that we're playing all the way up 87. So we have this all on camera with my crappy camera recording style. So we have him aiming towards people, aiming towards other cars, excessive rates of speed, failure to use turn signal, flipping 180s, wrong way traffic.
So a Boston driver.
Yeah. God, I don't know what it's like over there, but man, the last time I was in Dallas, Jesus.
Yeah.
You defined a mass hole.
Yeah.
Oh my, yeah. Yeah. Well, this guy continued on.
Sorry, Dizzy.
Yeah.
Dizzy's from Boston.
Oh, sorry, dude, Dizzy, no shade, man. I ain't throwing shade, dude. Yeah. But we stayed with this guy for all that time. From the time that we picked him up, he went through Payson, drove through Payson.
I've been through Payson. All right, yeah. Between Winslow and Scottsdale.
So, you can, yep. Yeah. So there are 3 separate law enforcement agencies that are following him. And at one point, each one of them essentially is calling it off. Like, we don't have this pursuit anymore. Kick it over to so-and-so.
Okay.
Well, as they continued to watch the behavior of the driver, they decided to go ahead and kick it to air. And that's when we assume responsibilities for the pursuit. So it doesn't mean like we're solely responsible. This is it. But we call what we see. It's still the pursuit commander can still call this pursuit off at any point in time. But now we're calling the violations direct so that everything's being recorded both with video and audio, right?
Okay.
So all those LE units essentially backed off to where they were well beyond 5 minutes, traveling at over 100 miles an hour. They were well beyond 5 minutes behind this pursuit. So this guy isn't really certain that anybody's even there anymore. So as he's continuing on, he pulls off to the left side of the road where there's like a gas station. He gets out of the driver's side, then he looks up and he realizes, holy shit, I've got a fucking asset above my head. So we're like, hi. By the way, start using your turn signal. Be nicer on the road.
Yeah.
So he gets back in his car with that same empty bag of gas that he has, and we know he's running on fumes. But one thing we do know at this point, there's at least one male in this car. So once he gets back in, he's northbound, but we know he's running on fumes. There's where he's at though in Arizona. It literally is like it's a dead man zone. There's a lot of cars aren't out there. A lot of like your phone will go in and out of signal there. It's shit. It's a ghost land. The single car, the one car that was coming down that road, he aims for it. So now he's slowing down, managing his speed, and what he wants to do is basically immobilize it enough so he can steal it. The driver of that only vehicle that's on the road veers slightly to the left at a slower speed and then comes to a complete stop, and his car rams into the passenger side of her vehicle. His car is now immobilized and out of play. He gets out of the car, and now I can see there's a second person that gets out of the car as well. We are directly beside them, so if I look down and right, that's what the pilot's looking at. I'm watching it with the camera. So I'm watching real time, and I remember that experienced medic, he's on the back right-hand side, so the medic and pilot are utilizing their eyeballs, and I'm going to take the camera, and I'll do the things I need to do with the camera. They'll do the things they need to do with their eyeballs. And we work as a team, and you learn those techniques,
Sure.
It's not something where we just expect you to figure this shit out, but it does make more sense. Like, how much can I see and for how long? Well, when we see them get out, Mike Overlees ends up, because at the time we were northbound, Overlees ends up turning the aircraft, slows it down even more, and turns the aircraft to the right and comes to a hover. And he's about a 300 plus foot hover now, but he's pointed into the wind, and I'm now filming this entire process. A total of 2 people get out of the car, though, driver and passenger side, and they go over to the driver's side of this person's vehicle. We don't know how many people are in that car. We don't know their sex. We don't know their age. We don't know anything about them.
Right.
So it could be a full family, and it is an SUV that was hit. So as far as we know, there's 6 people in that car. So after Overlees parks it, we can see what they're doing down on the road system. They're trying to break that glass. They want that car, and they're going to do anything and everything to get that car. I see him go back to the car, and he reaches in the car and gets something. At that point, I'm wondering, he's now armed. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But he's not doing anything with it. So I'm kind of like, all my focus isn't on that particular object, because he's not. If it was a gun, he would have just put it at the window and shot her. But he didn't do that. Eventually you see him throw it down, and then I'm able to look over and I'm like, fuck, that's the mirror, for Christ's sake. So he is, as far as I know, until confirmed otherwise, he's armed, but there is nothing in his hands right now.
Okay.
But one of the things that we talked about as a crew, while we're up there hovering a few hundred feet in the air, watching an active a kidnapping and carjacking happen right in front of us, underneath us, with the closest unit being 7 minutes away, traveling at over 100 miles an hour, we made the decision to go ahead and land the aircraft. But before we did, we talked about the safety side of it. Hey, open up that right cabin door. Medic's going to give a good scan all the way down. I've got the camera. I'm going to continue to maintain that. Pilot, make sure you're managing power. And we are now at a higher density altitude, right? Yeah. Where this call first dropped out, and it was about 2,000 feet pressure altitude. Now we're playing around 6,000 feet pressure altitude. The good thing is that we traded off all that fuel during that 50-plus minute pursuit.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, an hour of fuel in a 429 is a little over 600 pounds of fuel. So we burned almost 600 pounds of fuel in that time frame, which allowed us to essentially hover at that point easily. But while we're coming down, we're watching, because the camera is still forward and watching. I still haven't changed the camera angle. Mike is progressively lowering the aircraft down to land on the road system with coordination with the medic in the back. And we're talking about, this is the plan of action on this particular event. But even with that, I kind of fucked some things up, and I'll tell you my screw ups on this, but we're just above the deck, and this is when you guys came into the story. I did reach over. I did put my hand there just to double check. And I don't know why, you just kind of weird, but just putting it to make sure we're there. And my seatbelt is my seatbelt is coming off so that I can actually get ready to open that door, and my hand is going to be on my gun and moving out away from the aircraft and towards the target. The target being the guy that was trying to break into this car. By the time we had landed, though, both him, the bad guy, and the bad girl were both inside the vehicle, and they'd made the determination that they were going to kidnap this person.
Time to go. Yeah. Time to leave. Cops are here.
Yeah. So that's where they were in the process of actively trying to reposition the vehicle and basically steal another person. And when I say another person, something I haven't told you about this call is these are the same 2 individuals that are, and I'm going to say this in legalese, they're purported to have committed a murderous act that involved a felonious act that involved them murdering a female and putting her in a suitcase and stuffing her up in Cave Creek. So these aren't exactly good people. We didn't know any of this stuff though when we first started.
Yeah, you get it.
But guys, and this is where, in this particular case, and I still talk to the victim. I don't know. I'm not even going to say she's a victim. I still talk with the hero of this story, and we share stories back and forth. We're on each other's phone buffers where I'll call her and just to shoot the shit. She'll do the same with me. But as it turned out, she was the only person inside that vehicle.
Okay.
During the capture process, if you watch the video, which it may come out in another year or so.
Actually, I've got that.
My question is, are we at liberty? No, not yet, because it's not in court yet.
I would say not yet. I don't.
So here's the thing.
That's fine.
So here's the thing. There is video of this, and at some point in the future, when we are at liberty, I will put it on the website and tell people. But if but we'll wait for your release on that because, obviously that the putting bad people who do bad things like that behind bars is more important than entertainment value of watching a really cool arrest.
But I got to say, it's complete badass. I mean, jumping out of a helicopter to arrest two people who, are trying to carjack somebody. It doesn't get any better than that.
Dude still has his brain bucket on and his weapon out.
Yeah.
So, for those who are curious, I'm a staccato guy. So I had gone through a staccato P is a certain type of handgun.
I thought you were saying stiletto guys. No, what you do in your private time is
I have a funny picture of me in a freaking. I'll show you that one.
Oh, staccatos. Okay, staccato, not stilettos. All right.
I'll wear stilettos. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a shit,
right
man. I want something with glitter, though, man. I don't want this bullshit.
You like to be pretty as the next guy.
Fuck yeah, man. I want some shiny lip gloss, too.
There you go.
Fuck it.
Fantastic. All right.
That's awesome.
But that's the gun that I used was a staccato P. So if you look at it and you're like, that's not a department issued. No, you're absolutely right. That was a personal purchase duty carry, which you were allowed to do at this department. So,
nice.
For any of those gun nerds out there, and if you are a gun nerd, you know that trigger is pretty freaking light, and that's all the same trigger pull. So the second round goes where the first round went if you do everything right. Boom. So
there you go.
That's kind of where we're at with that one.
No shit. Well, very cool. Well,
that is awesome.
That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. We're going to have Double D back with us next week, I promise. But in the meantime, we've got to get just a couple thank yous out of the way. And first and foremost, I want to thank all active duty. I'm going to try talking again with real words this time. I'd like to thank all people on active duty, all veterans, and most especially their families who sacrifice so much that allows them to do the work they do. And we haven't said it often enough. I think we have once or twice here, but all of the first responders, the Leos and the firefighters who hang their ass out there every day to make our lives a little better. Even those of us who try to do self-inflicted stupidity wounds, they don't seem to care. They come out and help us out anyway. So we are deeply grateful to all of you who have stepped up and signed that blank check to
they're all lifeguards at the shallow end of the gene pool.
Yeah, right on. Exactly.
So. And I also need to say thanks to Backbeat Media with Dave Hamilton, who, without his help, we would not be here putting this show on. No. So very big thanks to Dave at Backbeat Media. Indeed.
Backbeatmedia.com handles our advertising. Hey, thanks also to all of our donors, especially this week, Jeff Carr. Thank you, sir. 5 big Benjamins. That was huge. We're deeply humbled by that. And all of you who give to SoleraWas.us/Patreon or SoleraWas.us/donate. We are not sure why, but we are humbled that you do give us so much of your hard-earned money so that we can make this show happen and bring these cool stories to you.
And let's not forget the merch store.
Yeah, baby.
So, we all got to have our merch. And, The cool thing there is, for all we know, that Fig could be laying out in his bikini right now. But
Exactly.
not all of us can do with that. So, and you can find that at sothereiwas.us/merch.
Yeah.
So we got hats, koozies, mugs, bikinis, and
You name it.
that's all there waiting for you.
Bikini season in the
Hoodies.
southern hemisphere. Yeah,
It is.
We've got a
It
really
is.
cool hoodie. I love that hoodie. So, yeah.
So the hoodie is pretty good. So.
Yeah, it's badass, you might say.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Hey, could you give us a rating and tell other people, share the show. Tell other people about this show. That's how we grow. We've kind of plateaued here, and it's been a while, and I'm getting kind of, I don't know, frustrated. We're deeply grateful for everybody that donates and helps and all that. If you can't donate, that's fine. What you can do is tell 2 friends about the show, then hold them at gunpoint and make them listen. And no, I guess once you start taking hostages, it's not fun anymore. Please share the show with friends. Go to stereowas.us/rate and follow the links to give us a 5-star rating, or Fig will hunt you down and make you look at him in a bikini.
All right. Yeah, that could be scary.
That's incentive to share the show, folks.
It's incentive.
Do it the
You're
easy
not
way or
wrong.
the hard way here.
You are not wrong. Yeah, exactly. All right, and let's not forget Badass at BDS Aviation Photography, who is a artiste, if you will.
Is indeed.
Man, he does some fantastic photos, and we just are so blessed to have that as a resource to us. And last but not least, we got to say thanks to Bago, who runs our Facebook group and is also our backup producer in the background and all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. And you, Sticks, you often do production. You've been doing production while co-hosting here. So, man, thank you. Appreciate that. That's absolutely huge.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah,
That's my thing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a helicopter pilot.
Then there's just 2 more thank yous that I need to get out right now. Not uno, but dos. To the Dos Gringos, who let us use their music. 4 albums, not a bad song in a bunch. A couple of great human beings. 2 F-16 pilots who make even the Air Force sound good. Hard to say, but it's true. So, thank
Makes
you,
me a
gents.
little nauseated when I say that.
Well, yeah, there's that. So, yeah. So, anyway, folks, until next week, stay safe and don't sit on the collective.
Yeah, don't do it.
Well, there I was, crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. 'Cause when you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Oh, what?
He said it's over.
Mistakes were made.
And we're out.